Hi again then guys, and welcome to yet another specific car review from the 1.25 patch, and this is obviously one which I wanted to be able to do much earlier, and I was planning to as well until I booted up the game, uploaded the update, obviously, and then noticed that the price tag is 10 million more than it is on Gran Turismo 6, which is kind of a setback, you could say, but at the same time, as I mentioned in my overall review of the pack, one which I understand and I don't necessarily dislike. It's kind of an inconvenience how long it takes to save up for it, but if there was any car that deserves to go up, it's certainly a Daytona Cobra, especially now that Polyphony set the precedent with the Cobra 427 jumping significantly in price as well, from $500,000 or thereabouts up to $2 million. So not too surprising really if I'd really considered that that had already happened in a sense, and that this one had the same thing occur. Now, as far as the Daytona Cobra goes, it is of course a high roller. It's in that same playlist here on YouTube, but it's one which was probably my favourite high roller from GT6. I used to drive it the most, it had a great price, the performance was really good, it wasn't as quick, in fact nowhere near as quick as some of the others. For top speed, the Miura was pretty much the quickest of all of them, and then the XJ13, then the P4, and then probably the Mark IV and the Daytona were about the same. You could get about 225 miles per hour out of either of them, whereas now none of them are quite that quick, although they're still quick. It's more so now about the way that they look, they sound, and they perform through corners and around technical circuits, rather than just around a track like Special Stage Route X, of course. So with that in mind, what kind of changes have happened to the Daytona, especially for those of us who already owned it in GT6 but maybe haven't bought it yet in GT Sport? Is it worth getting given the huge price hike? Well, to put it simply, yes. It's definitely worth buying as far as I'm concerned. 10 million more is a whole lot. You will have to do the Blue Moon Bay event or something like it at least 40 times to be able to buy the car, which is a lot of work, but at the same time it is better than in GT6. Not in terms of top speed, as I said, not even in terms of power, but in terms of being able to adjust the livery and to edit the livery now. That's a huge improvement, but also in terms of the physics and the actual sound of the car, and of course the graphics, it is definitely improved. Again, it already was a premium in GT6, thankfully, for that kind of price, but it was one which already felt good. It wasn't quite a super premium, I don't think, at the time, although it might have been, but it was definitely a car that looked the part for the PS3 at the time. Now it definitely looks even better, and it sounds better. It's louder, it's more gruff, it's more aggressive, it has more of a growl, and it almost sounds a little bit more messy, a little bit more of a rasp to it, which it should. That sounds appropriate to the car, it sounds great from the cockpit, sounds great from the outside, as of course you heard from the start of the video, but in terms of the physics, it's even better than it was in GT6, and again that was one of the reasons why I loved it so much, because ironically, for anything with the name Cobra written on it anywhere, it actually has really good handling, which is not of course what the Cobra is known for, but the Daytona is really good through corners in GT6. Now in GT Sport, it is unarguably, as far as I'm concerned, definitely even better than it was, but with the improvements in stuff like suspension physics, tyre physics, it feels not just better, but it also feels more authentic at the same time. In fact, when doing these laps around Le Mans, I could actually see and feel the front end kind of bouncing and lifting a little bit through high-speed corners, as the car should. That is what old-school race cars do, so it is cool to see that the game is making these improvements. Not just to specific cars, but in general. You just tend to notice it more with old cars because they're more primitive and they do bounce and shake around a lot more than a modern car does. So I would say that overall, at least for my money, for my 15 million credits, I am very, very happy with the Daytona Cobra. The fact that it's at least as good as it already was, but in many ways better, well, that pretty much seals the deal. It's gorgeous, it's a fantastic collector's piece, and if that wasn't all enough, the cherry on the top of the cake is of course the fact that also from the 1.25 update, you can now actually race it against cars that aren't just one or two Group X cars head to head, or one make racing, or a custom event. you can take it into career mode, and albeit only 3 races, but still 3 races that we didn't have before, that you can actually take these old school race cars, the most expensive ones in the game, and put them head to head. Your Jaguar XJ13, your Ferrari P4, your 250 GTO, your, if I didn't already say it, Ford Mark IV, the Daytona Cobra. It's a fantastic rivalry to have between all of these cars. And to cap it all off, you actually get pretty decent money for the race as well. It takes, what, 6 or 7 minutes, you get about 240 grand for it, maybe a little bit more I think if it's a clean race. So yeah, it pays pretty well also, so it's nice to be able to finally actually get some use out of these Group X cars. Now in terms of spec, it's kind of incidental for a car like this, because it's more so what it does than what it says on paper that's great about it, because on paper it's actually kind of underwhelming compared to what you might expect from a car with that kind of price. 4.7 litre V8, of course 289 cubic inch, 384 horsepower, so as I said, nowhere near as powerful as some of the others. 340 pound-feet of torque, which actually can rival some of the others. Again, not too surprisingly for an American car. It is light, not as light as something like a Ferrari P4, and a little bit heavier than the Ford Mark IV, which weighs exactly 1 metric ton. This one's a little bit over at 1,043 kilos, but the horsepower per ton is still 368, which for a car that has under 400 horsepower to begin with is really good. As we already mentioned, obviously it's Group X, price tag is 15 million instead of, I believe it was 4.5, the same as the Chaparral 2J in GT6. So overall, my thoughts on this car are very clear. It took me a few days to be able to get it because of the price. It will take me a few more days to be able to get the Ford Mark IV, but for now, this one is definitely worth the money. Of course, if you are not a classic fan at all, then chances are you're probably not interested in buying any of them. But if you are, and specifically if you already like this car just in general, definitely if you liked it on GT6, as I did, you will love it. It sounds way better than it did, it looks even better, the physics are very, very good, the handling is fantastic, it's almost too good in a sense, the handling is that good. I would easily say the best handling of all of the high rollers now, and that's a strong statement to make. I know some people still think that maybe 1 or 2 of the others are better, perhaps the 250 GTO, which of course I also very highly praise the handling of. I would put this one just above that, just above it, because they're both outstandingly good, but to me this one, it's just got a little bit more attitude to it than the Ferrari. The Ferrari is sleek and light on its feet. This one, it's more aggressive, more muscular, but still really controlled, surprisingly forgiving, and very, very competitive. So overall, I'm super happy with the Daytona Cobra. I think this is definitely the best incarnation of the Cobra that I've driven in any racing game so far, even as far back as something like Test Drive Unlimited, in which it was also very expensive. So overall, yeah, if you haven't bought it yet, I would recommend working towards it. Plus, the fact that it is 5 million credits cheaper than some of the others is a pretty good incentive. It's not the cheapest of them all, it's certainly nowhere near the GT40 for the moment, but 15 million is a lot quicker. That's 40 Blue Moon Bay events instead of 54, so a significant difference. Overall though, definitely a cool car as far as I'm concerned, and one that I'm very happy with, and easily my favourite of the pack now that I've actually bought it. But that's it for this pick, of course. I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.